thank you very much for coming. Gracias por haber venido. Gracias por haber venido. Bienvenidos a la presentación oficial de PAD, la Asociación de Creadores de Videojuegos. Esta asociación nace de la iniciativa de 11 empresas creadoras de videojuegos por una realización de que no hay una respuesta institucional a las necesidades de las empresas de este sector, de nuestras características. De esta primera unión sale la junta directiva. Yo soy Eva Gaspar, la presidenta. El vicepresidente es Carlos Fernández, de Mumbai, está aquí. El secretario general es David Jaume Andreu, de Undercoders, que está ahí. Perdón, es que tiene que recoger a nuestro invitado Kale Kaibola, que está abajo, en la calle. Laura Suárez, de The Village Games, la tesorera. Tenemos como vocales a Juan Albero, de We Use Power Apps. Ramón Nafria, de A Crowd of Monsters. Asimismo, hoy en la Asamblea General hemos escogido dos nuevos vocales. Daniel Santos, de Stage Clear, y de Game Kitchen. Lo siento, no me acuerdo del nombre, demasiado fresco. En estos momentos, con muy poca publicidad, más bien ha sido una cuestión de boca a oreja, de confianza, de ilusión en el proyecto. Ya somos 40 empresas asociadas, 29 más han pedido su adhesión. Este es el listado. Y seguimos recibiendo solicitudes porque es un proyecto que anima y aúna las voluntades de los creadores de videojuegos de todo el Estado español. Nuestro manifiesto, nuestra misión es que PAD sea una asociación abierta, activa, inclusiva, horizontal y transparente, con el objetivo de responder a las necesidades reales de las empresas creadoras de videojuegos. En un principio, las empresas creadoras de videojuegos que nos encontramos en un 90% son pequeñas empresas. Estas pequeñas empresas son creadores, técnicos, artistas, que suelen tener unas carencias y unas cualidades concretas y muy comunes. La asociación es abierta porque acepta, quiere que todo el mundo forme parte, tanto empresa como profesional. Es activa porque cada miembro, cada socio, es un motor de acción de la asociación. Una asociación orgánica, inclusiva, porque colabora con otros sectores, con otras asociaciones nacionales, internacionales. Queremos que todo el mundo se beneficie y participe de este proyecto. Horizontal, porque todos los socios tienen el mismo peso. No hay, solo porque haya 11 empresas que fundaron no significa que tengan más peso en votaciones o en elección de proyectos o en absolutamente nada. Todos estamos al mismo nivel. Transparente, porque es una asociación sin ánimo de lucro donde todo se hace de puertas abiertas con todos los miembros asociados. Los objetivos de PAD se estructuran en 3 grupos básicos: comunicación, fomento y representación. En el bloque de comunicación, PAD quiere establecerse como un interlocutor válido y creíble ante instituciones, ante la sociedad. Quiere ser ese canal abierto de comunicación con todos los actores que forman nuestra sociedad. Además, utilizamos para comunicarnos todas las herramientas de social media que hay a nuestro alcance. captamos la información y la transmitimos a nuestros asociados, captamos la información de nuestros asociados, sus voluntades, y las transmitimos a la sociedad y a las instituciones. Además, como no podía ser menos, también queremos que el PAD sea un centro o una institución de arbitraje y mediación ante conflictos que puedan surgir, tanto en la sociedad como entre asociados, como profesionales, simplemente que sirva un punto de, bueno, vamos a ver cómo podemos mediar y solucionar la situación que sea. Como representación, porque queremos ser un organismo de representación institucional, queremos que todas las empresas que forman parte de PAD tengan una voz, tengan capacidad de hablar con todas las instituciones de gobierno y de trabajo. Uniéndonos podemos tener voz. Asimismo, PAD representa los intereses de sus asociados, puesto que todos somos empresas de un sector muy concreto, que es la creación de videojuegos, tenemos un sentir parecido, unas necesidades muy parecidas, por lo tanto, PAD quiere defender esos intereses ante terceros, y además de representar a sus asociados en ferias y eventos internacionales. Desde el punto de vista de fomento, hay tres grandes bloques. Un punto de vista social, con la lucha o el trabajo por incorporar a la mujer a este sector que es claramente masculino, y trabajar por la igualdad de género, haciendo talleres, ponencias, hablando, incluyendo, haciendo que se incluya a la mujer desde el punto de vista femenino. Asimismo, promover una imagen seria y profesional del sector. No son 4 niños jugando en el garaje, somos profesionales que nos ganamos la vida con esto. Y es un sector que en otras zonas del mundo es una industria de las más importantes. Asimismo, a nivel económico, queremos que PAD sea un intercambio de ideas y de proyectos y de colaboración entre sus asociados. Captar también inversión y proyectos, generar oportunidades de negocio para los asociados y, lógicamente, para la sociedad en la que se integra. Por último, colaboración europea e internacional. Que haya una participación de la industria española en otros escenarios como el europeo, el americano, el asiático, donde haya una presencia fuerte y clara de industria española. Como a corto plazo, las actividades de PAD previstas, aparte de la colaboración con certámenes establecidos, queremos organizar un congreso de developers donde haya un intercambio entre empresarios, profesionales y estudiantes de las distintas áreas de conocimiento: el arte, la producción, el marketing, la comercialización. Asimismo, haya un espacio donde los asociados puedan exponer sus juegos, sus creaciones, y se pueda atraer a inversores, a publishers y a gente interesada, como, en fin, la sociedad, a visitar y a conocer estas creaciones que se están haciendo por parte de los asociados. Además, ya se está hablando y se está tratando con distintas entidades para firmar convenios de colaboración con instituciones educativas, universidades, colegios, empresas de marketing, de gestoría legal, organizaciones sectoriales, como puede ser el clúster audiovisual, que tenemos al presidente entre nosotros hoy aquí. Asimismo, también tenemos representantes de instituciones educativas. También hacer convenios con asociaciones europeas e internacionales para que haya un intercambio de conocimiento y que fluya y que permee entre todos los asociados y la sociedad. Por último, la financiación de PAD. Nosotros somos una asociación que no requiere cuota de adhesión. ¿Por qué? Porque lo que pedimos es que haya participación activa del asociado. Eso es mucho más valioso que cualquier cuota que pudiéramos poner. Cada asociado debe participar con sus opiniones, con sus voluntades, con lo que pueda. Y así es como estamos haciendo, así es como estamos creciendo. Además, pensamos contar con voluntariado para la organización de eventos o determinadas actividades, por supuesto financiación pública, donaciones, promociones y patrocinios y la venta de merchandising. Vamos a utilizar cualquier tipo de actividad económica que permita a la asociación autofinanciarse y financiar los proyectos en los que se va a ver inmersa. Y por último, ¿cómo asociarse o colaborar con PAD? Pues bueno, se puede escribir a este email, president@padweb.org, o visitar la web, la página de Facebook y Twitter. Y toda la información, toda la nueva información que vaya surgiendo de esta asociación se va a transmitir a través de estos canales. Bueno, y esta es la presentación. Hoy tenemos aquí a Diana Dimovska. Ella es la directora de Knock Games, basada en Copenhague. Ella además es la miembro de la junta de IGDA en Copenhague, en Dinamarca, perdón, y cofundadora del Copenhagen Game Collective. Ella nos va a hablar de la asociación parecida a la nuestra, pero en el norte de Europa y cómo se organizan y cómo... Gracias.
Thank you, Eva, for the introduction that I half understood. Okay, so I do own an indie small kind of studio in Copenhagen, but I will talk to you about my collective. I co-founded collective some time ago with a bunch of my colleagues and other developers in Copenhagen. And it's called Copenhagen Game Collective. So I would like to tell you a little bit why and how we started, because I can see or I understand that this is a very similar organization you're starting, maybe a little bit more serious than what we are. But we do have a board, but we don't necessarily use it as I guess you will do it. But so to explain you, I think before I get to the keywords, is so I have a game studio that makes very experimental games, and it's very hard to make them commercial, which is fine. You can still live out of them, but the team has to be smaller, and it's very important to be known, because there is not maybe a market like mass market out there, but it's kind of important that your name is out there, so at least someone knows about you. So how we started is that we became bigger at festivals in US like Indicate, for example, because Indicate celebrates this kind of experimental indie games. And when we got back from Indicate, we have met all these people there. We networked with some really interesting people, but we realized that within 6 months from the festival and on, we had so much more friends internationally than actually in the Nordics or in Denmark. So we actually started to think, how can we get inspired by something like Indicate, like IGF, or like other collectives around the world, like there's one in Canada, Kokoromi, that is also kind of doing similar stuff that we are doing, or used to be very active. And then we started thinking about how can we do something and change the environment in Denmark and maybe the Nordic region. We learned, or we knew, that there is a lot of similar developers, like 1 or 2 man companies around the Nordics that are very isolated. So we kind of started to get in touch with these people through attending this kind of a special or very kind of private game jam called Nordic No More Sweden in Sweden, which gathered a lot of these indie developers. And we kind of started to meet them, and not many of these people wanted to be active and do something for the environment, for the Nordics, but then we recognized we were a good enough bunch that we started this initiative in Copenhagen. And after like some talking and discussing what should it be, because we all have like companies or games we're doing aside, we started with goals like promote indie games, which is like big, but we kind of thought about what about like introducing people in the Nordics about all these games that are winning prizes at Indicate. Like we kind of, most of our friends or most of the people around us would know like the big games, but wouldn't know much about the smaller indie games. So we kind of thought about, yes, what about spreading the word to the local community, Nordics, but also beyond. Then we also thought about, like just promoting and inspiring people to make more experimental games and like be involved in that culture, like follow that culture. And we were like pushing out examples that, look, this is possible. I mean, there are people making money out of this. This is kind of 4 years ago, I would say, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, like 2008, 2009, where it was like really kind of the peak where indie games like really proved that they can make money and they can really be successful. So then we also talked about how to unite and support the indie community in the Nordic region and beyond. So we're doing a bunch of events, and I will explain you later, but this was also one of the key things is like we are too small in Denmark, but what about uniting with the rest of the Nordic? Like Spain is big enough, but Denmark is like really tiny, and we really knew as soon as you step in the industry, you know each other like in a month, 3 months, 6 months, and then you really know everybody if you really network. And then we had this sub goal, which was kind of in the end very important, as to bring the indie games to the local community, like so local people from the local neighborhood could actually know that there is next door, there is a game company, maybe it's small, but actually well known internationally or if not locally. So we kind of had this, why not teach the locals that there is something cool happening in Denmark that they should also recognize. How we do this? So from traveling around the first few years when we made the first game, we realized that actually networking and parties is a very important, like game exhibitions and networking festivals is a very important way of how you kind of promote yourself, how you meet people like you, how you become a business really, instead of just a person sitting at home making a game, or like just a company making a game or working for a publisher or whatever. How can you like be known as who you are and what you are doing, like that is special about you. So that's why we are today kind of organizing a lot of game exhibitions, parties, game events with talks and showcases. We're participating also and organizing stuff at other game events like conferences like GDC, and I'll tell you more about it. And we are also very like trying to be active with blogging and Facebook and Twitter, kind of talking about these events or things that we are doing within the organization. So what's very kind of special in a way is that we treat the organization as for everybody. Of course, you have to have the interest in game development and like indie games, but we kind of don't necessarily go to the companies and say, become a member. It's more of like we have a board or a decision-making people in the background, and then we have an open list to participants or members or volunteers, as you want to call it. So we, of course, companies are involved. Like, I mean, it's pretty much all the guys that work with me, for example, are active in the collective. So it is kind of as a company initiative. I also let them to use a lot of their kind of snap time to help with the collective events. But the goal is also to like kind of involve students or like people that are really have the time or like maybe just want to help with run some do some logistics or like some, which is like not that challenging or not that interesting job, but you really needs to be done when you're organizing events. So we kind of let everybody just join, and in the beginning we have like this list where like everybody's listening and everybody can like get to the point of understanding what the task is and just join a little group or a team that will continue working on something. So we have like a volunteers members list that is growing every day. Well, I'll tell you what we've done, and we've done a lot of initiatives. some local, some international. We kind of started pretty big from the beginning. We did this Kill Screen versus Scandinavia game exhibition in San Francisco during GDC. We did it twice, I think, in 2011 and 2012. The whole point was like, partnering up with Kill Screen, which is a magazine that is pretty interested in indie games and very special, like very original magazine. And then we made this party, and we even did like a Kickstarter campaign for it. So it's not, we haven't even, in the beginning, we were not even supported by any institutions or organizations. That's something we tried to do later, but in the beginning we kind of spread our word to our friends and community and partner up with someone like Killspring. It's a magazine. I mean, if they can't do press, we can. And so we made like this huge party during GDC in San Francisco. And our target was it's not only developers, also publishers, whoever. Like, we really wanted to just reach out to anybody and see who's interested to come and see this. It was overcrowded, oversold, sold out. It was really amazing, so we kind of repeated it as well. This is another picture of that. Yeah, of course, all the parties that you organize, of course, have like some interesting party games or something really cool to show from developers that we recognize, we know have great games. So usually we do kind of open calls, or we just invite developers. And depending on the space and setup we have, sometimes it's strictly party games, sometimes it's like more, also other type of games. So that was a pretty big success, and internationally kind of like recognized because it was during GDC, everybody heard about it. So then we went up being even kind of more ambitious, which we partnered up with Nordic Game Conference. And this is kind of interesting because Nordic Game Conference, it's pretty much similar to like, I don't know, like Game Lab, I guess, here. Like something that gets everybody in the Nordic together. And there's like really interesting sessions and very popular, interesting speakers are coming over. But it was never really having a focus on like indie game developers. So we pretty much approached the organizers and asked them if we could like co-organize something with them. So they actually let us the space, and we did this Nordic Indie Game Night. Again, we stress a lot to this Scandinavia, Nordic, not only like Danish, because it's just so much cooler when you're bigger. So we did this game exhibition, or more of a festival. It's actually growing now really big, but it's a festival which is inspired by something like IGF or Indicate. Pretty much IGF is a good example because it runs with a big conference, but it celebrates indie games. So we have an open call for games, and then we choose like 8 finalists, and we exhibit their games at this kind of a festival the day before the conference, the big conference. It's like in the evening. So then we have like some sessions, and then we have the games exposed, and we invite press, publishers to look at these games, to talk about these games, which is like super nice for the indie developers that are there exhibiting their games. So we kind of try to provide these services in a way. It's kind of a service to indie game developers with the idea to like really boost the Nordic indie games, to really take them out like from the Nordic region and beyond, because there's like press from everywhere that comes to Nordic Game Conference. So we have an award show which is tied together with the Nordic Game official award show. The games are there exposed for like the entire conference. The only special thing is that we have that night before the conference, we make a party, we have some sessions, so we really kind of celebrate the indie games. And as I say, this has been a huge success, and I really recommend you think about something like this, because it's really now the games that come out from this festival have kind of a stamp saying like, yes, we were finalists or won this award show, and it's recognized because it's also related to the big conference that people know from all over the world. And then lastly, beside the many events, I just picked some. I'll tell you about we do some, you maybe heard about Wild Rumpus in London. I don't know if you heard about it. They make also big parties with indie games. So we kind of did it first, and I think they got inspired by us. But so we decided also to, as I said, we wanted to tell the local community, the people living in Copenhagen, that this kind of scene is happening. It's pretty big internationally. We don't know about it, but come and find out. So that was the goal. So we kind of made these arcade parties once a year. So we had an arcade boat party in 2011, then we had like an arcade street party 2012. Like so the boat party, for example, was just a collaboration with like another kind of organization or like volunteers that do crazy stuff with technology. So they had this big boat like that they owned, so they let us do it there and invited everybody from the neighborhood. But then, for example, a year later, this was like the same year, but like there's a street festival in Copenhagen that is very, very big. So this is the first year where we did a little test. We played some like joust, or maybe you know, we played joust on the street with a lot of like people that were there for the festival. They had no idea what's going on, but they were really into it. So we decided then the next year we came back strong and we had our own stage with indie games at this middle of the festival. It's like it's happening really literally on the streets of Copenhagen for like a couple of days. So we had like a big stage with DJs, indie games, like one side, DJ another side, like you know, huge party. So that's kind of like, as I say, it's not necessarily like the goal for the industry to grow, but it's also something that maybe you want to consider, like you want to tell people around you that you exist and you have really cool games. But as I say, depending on the differences of the interest on the people in the organization is how we do these events. So this is just an example, I guess. Yeah, I think we've also been doing some political stuff, like so where people from the collective went to the Maldives and tried to make games on the streets in Maldives while they have demonstrations and their military is taking over the country and they are extreme Islamists. So the thing is that they're trying to provoke the society there. So it's like, as I say, depending on the people that are involved in the collective is what kind of events are happening. So I guess I don't have much time. So if you want to contact me or like have questions or anything, then you can Twitter or email or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And now we're gonna welcome Kale Kevola, Vice President of Product and Publishing from Rovio, and he's gonna give us the outlook on, well, I guess everybody knows Angry Birds, probably, and he's gonna give us the outlook of a company that was like any of our associates, and has made it huge. So thank you.
Hi guys, thanks for having me over. I'm actually here on vacation, but I guess this is a little more than a profession for me. So you know, hanging out with game developers on vacation, you can do a lot worse. So I'm Kalle Kaivola, Senior Vice President, or as I hear they say here, Senior Vice President of Product and Publishing. Essentially, that's a very convoluted title. I look after the content of our games. Oh great, I don't have my notes here. Well, I guess I'll just make stuff up. Actually, I'm such a cynical guy, I put them out myself. So there we go. So the company itself. So 2009, we made a game called Angry Birds. That turned out to be pretty huge, and we, from a very small company at the time, we grew to be somewhere around 700 employees that we are today. So that's been a big journey for us. The game itself has been downloaded like a couple of billion times now, which is kind of like, I have personally a huge problem trying to wrap my head around numbers like that. They seem really strange to me, and I think that speaks for the potential of the business that we're in. When you strike big, the scale is huge and it's unprecedented. There's never been stuff like this before. So, and you know, with a very small team too, like the original Angry Birds team, 7 people and 2 billion downloads. Of course, there were a lot of further products, but that's where it all got started. Let me tell you a bit about what we do as a company these days. So we started out as a mobile game development company called Rovio Mobile, and we soon switched it to Rovio Entertainment to tell more about, like, we are in the business of telling stories, to put it one way. We have a lot of different businesses wherein we do animation, we do gaming, we have books and learning, we have a lot of various, consumer products such as, stuff like this, which is all based around the entertainment property that we created. We even have, we've expanded from developing games into publishing them. You'll see that our spearheading title for our Rovio Start Publishing program was actually developed here in Barcelona by the fantastic people at Finance. Is there anybody from Finance in the crowd, by the way?
No, they're presenting a game tomorrow, so they're in crush mode, but they're associates from FAN too.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, and so I'm going to meet them on Monday then, I guess. All right, good times. So essentially, this sort of business actually happened to us kind of after the fact. We were touring a lot of trade shows, then we started talking to a lot of developers, and then they started talking to us like, hey, could you help, how did you make Angry Birds successful in the App Store? Could you tell us some tips? And then, okay, yeah, sure, we did this and that and this and that, and we talked to them. Then at some point they were like, could you publish the game for us? And we're like, publish, but we're developing. Okay, I guess we can publish them. And so we realized that we had built a publishing organization on our own, and then we started working with sort of select developers whose games we can totally get behind, and who we feel that the games really serve the Angry Birds audience. So that's been a thrilling ride. We've got 3 games out now. These games and Choose Cubes, which is our first free-to-play title that we published, and there's a lot more coming this year. Be prepared. We've also branched out into animation. Angry Birds Toons now has we have 52 episodes out right now. We've got more series coming out. This expands on the very, very minimalistic backstory of Angry Birds that was present originally. I remember when Angry Birds came out, and I think it was my ex-mother-in-law who was like saying that, yeah, there's no story in Angry Birds. And I said, no, you're wrong. There's totally a story. Like the pigs steal the eggs and the birds get really angry. Isn't that a story? Well, we kind of expanded a little on that, but let's just say the guys who were doing the story, they had their work cut out for them to start from such a small thing, but it sort of expanded now into this Toon series that we actually broadcast on the devices, which is a very new way of showing animations, and we're also working on a feature film, something that I cannot talk anything about today, unfortunately. Oh yeah, I've got a video for you. I think it's 99% certain that it's not going to work. Yeah. Okay, the video was excellent. Picture in your minds this amazing video that shows happy people at Rovio, and they have great IP and technology that never fails. That's us. Don't want to fail technology. But yeah, the reason I actually wanted to speak here today, because I think this is relevant for you guys, is that part was actually the official company deck, or 10% of the official company deck. It's very long and boring usually. But I'm not that interested in that. That's kind of an overview of what we're doing right now. I think the sort of more relevant part of this was that Rovio was founded in 2003. It's over 10 years old now. It made 51 games before Angry Birds. They were not successful. Like, they were not knock it out of the park successful. There were a lot of hits and misses. I think Rovio grew to something like, 40 people at its peak when it was, but by the time Angry Birds came out, it was down to 12 people, and the company was going out of business. Like, seriously, it was in dire straits. If that game hadn't happened, there would be no Angry Birds 2. That was it. Like, there was a very, I wasn't there. I'm totally mooching off of the success of others. But I hear from the people who were there, like, at the launch party, it wasn't called smiles, let's put it that way. Like, not exactly crying into their, beer cans or anything, but still, it was very grim and uncertain. Now, of course, since then, people know the story that, it started really was one of the first sort of $1 apps that really gained traction and started getting a lot of visibility, a lot of media coverage, a lot of celebrities started playing it and endorsing it. On Twitter was new, people were tweeting about it, all that. So it turned into this snowballing phenomenon. That's great. But the thing is, it's important to realize that these sort of things don't really happen on their own. I'm going to give you a little overview, actually, what's been happening, like what the effect of the success of Rovio and Supercell has been. Here's a few numbers. Pretend that that's the official Angry Birds font, by the way, so that our PR department doesn't murder me when I get back. That's fine. But this is, if you look at 2009, when Angry Birds was released, that's the entire turnover of the Finnish game sector was 87 million euros. And last year was 800 million. Of course, a lot of that is Rovio and Supercell, but there's a lot of other revenue coming in on various players. There's, I think, roughly 180 companies, game companies in Finland now. And there was last year, there was 150 million euros of investment of various kinds into Finnish game developers. A lot of big boys are moving in now. EA, Unity, Playground Publishing, they all opened offices in Finland. I hear rumors and rumblings of other companies coming into town. Disney, Ubisoft, and Gung Ho all bought themselves a Finnish developer, and or SoftBank rather, if you wanna use that term for the Supercell deal. And okay, that's a little dishonest number. That 1.1 billion euros in acquisitions, that was 100% Supercell almost. But there we go. Well done. But it's sort of, I mean, I looked at the numbers and I realized that the last statement there, that Finnish companies made more from just licensing these IP than they made in the entire revenue just 4 years ago. But this sort of begs the question why. There's a source, I think that's the most important thing here, neogames.fi. That's the Finnish sort of developer organization that collects all the developers in Finland and presents a united front towards, various government agencies. They do a lot of, they engage in sort of political discourse. They have people who speak the language of the developers and sort of a more political language, something which I know nothing about. Just as an example of this, like one of the things that is a driving force behind Finnish game companies getting off the ground is Tekes, the Finnish technology grant. And 10 years ago, it was mostly looking into stuff like biotechnology and stuff like that, which we all know to be boring. But then they started looking at like, hey, check it out. This sort of IT sector has a little offshoot called games, and sort of treated that as an IT sort of thing. I remember making applications back in the day for them, and we had to pretend to be like a technology project. Like, yeah, this is going to bring real long-lasting value to the company. We'll be able to sell this engine for $1 million. Sure, give us money, please. Like that was really difficult because there was kind of this lack of dialogue between the government and the game companies, and that's where NeoGames sort of stepped in and opened up this dialogue and collected sort of people from various companies. I've now been involved in the most recent round of talks, and there's a lot of other developers very actively engaging the government in like how to subsidize this sector the best. Because funnily enough, like even for me as an representative of a large company, it doesn't, my solution is not to give all money to us. That's not going to work. However, having a very healthy ecosystem of game development in Finland is crucial for us, so that we can retain a talent pool. If we're the only developer in town, or we in Supercell, it's going to be a dying market. So it's in everybody's best interest to get the startups going and get the independent developers to be as functional as possible. And this is really hard to do if you're this disparate group of dozens and dozens of little companies, none of whom have the time or really the knowledge of how to speak to these political people. I know I don't. I maybe you guys may be better at that, but I've got nothing on that front. So that's been a sort of the Finnish game development scene has turned very cohesive. The International Game Developers Association is very active in Finland. There's its own chapter in Finland that that bands together. We actually have a beer night every month, where I think there are more trade secrets told there than at GDC, put together. It's amazing. Sometimes it's very disturbing, but yeah, it's a sort of thing that keeps kind of everybody in the loop, and that's why Finnish companies are hugely competitive if you look at them. Because the thing that I kind of want to drive home here is that we're a country of, much like Denmark, country of 5 million people. You guys can do stuff like this as well, and I like per capita. There is no reason, for you guys to be, hugely successful and take over the world. And to that end, I wish you guys the best of luck. Take care.
Thank you very much. Y ahora pasamos a la participación del señor Jordi Sellas, director general de las Empresas Culturales de la Generalitat de Cataluña, que nos dará su punto de vista institucional. Gracias.
Gràcies, bon dia a tothom. Gràcies, Eva, presidenta. T'he de dir. Ara, buenos días. No sé si lo hago en inglés, en català. Bueno, ho faré a mitges. Ho faré a mitges. Aquest any és un any, crec que bastant important perquè, entre moltes altres coses, s'ha creat aquest primer grau en videojocs. És un any en què està previst que se'n creïn alguns més. Per tant, que tots aquests màsters, aquests estudis que hem tingut creixent durant els darrers anys aquí a Catalunya i que estan donant professionals s'estan afiançant, i això és una bona notícia. És una bona notícia, com deia el company Cali fa un segon aquí, l'he perdut de vista, que hi hagi associacions que puguin començar a exercir aquesta capacitat d'interlocució amb les institucions, amb el govern, que al final estar al govern o estar a l'administració no vol dir res més. Jo que fa encara no un any que hi estic, que intentar gestionar els recursos de tots plegats de la manera més positiva possible, perquè aquests recursos acabin generant-ne més i acabin generant un retorn positiu en termes d'ocupació, en termes de riquesa, en termes de retorn social. Per tant, tenir interlocutors que siguin capaços de poder representar sectors, sobretot si són sectors nous, són sectors emergents, encara és més important. Com deia el Calé fa un segon, quan van haver de començar a parlar amb el govern finès, necessitaven primer estructurar-se i dir som nosaltres i aquestes són les necessitats que tenim. No hem d'amagar-nos darrere de projectes, revestir-nos de som una empresa tecnològica del Pla Europeu de Creixement de les TIC, quan el que som és un sector com el dels videojocs que té una clara ubicació al món i en el mercat. Aleshores, és especialment important que s'uneixi aquest moment en què la formació de professionals està adquirint una solidesa forta, en què aquests professionals que ja estan treballant s'agrupen d'una manera també sòlida i professional. A més, amb les bases fundacionals d'aquesta associació, compartir coneixements, compartir contactes, compartir experiències, créixer junts i tenir aquesta capacitat per poder ser representatiu. Això jo crec que es lligarà a una altra bona notícia, crec, que és que per primera vegada, i ho farem passat al Mobile World Congress d'aquest any, el govern de la Generalitat presentarà el seu primer pla de cultura digital. És un pla en el que hem estat treballant des de fa molts mesos. És un pla que no m'hagués pogut personalment permetre passar, encara que sigui un temps pel govern, sense haver-lo pogut fer i haver-lo pogut presentar. És un pla que d'entrada mira a les empreses natives digitals en igualtat de condicions de totes aquelles empreses que de forma clàssica, de forma tradicional, s'han dedicat al món de la cultura. Tradicionalment el món de la cultura ha tingut tot és cultura, però quan hem parlat de ministeris de cultura hem parlat de dedicar-se especialment a 5 grans sectors: el sector de les arts escèniques, el sector de la música, el sector editorial, el món del llibre, el món de les arts plàstiques, les arts visuals i el món de l'audiovisual, centrat bàsicament en el cinema, l'animació i en la televisió. Nosaltres hem afegit aquesta nova pota, la pota digital, com una àrea més de ple dret, de ple ordre dins del govern de la Generalitat, dins l'àmbit del Departament de Cultura. I a més aquest pla inclourà tota una sèrie d'accions exclusives, pensades i adequades i treballades pensant en les necessitats d'aquest sector. D'entrada, com deia abans el Calé també, no és una qüestió de dir, escolta, amb les subvencions, a veure qui ara reparteix les subvencions. No és una qüestió de repartir subvencions, és una qüestió de dir com aquests diners que són de tots, com aquests recursos que són de tots, els utilitzem perquè realment s'inverteixin en aquells espais de creixement, en aquells espais nous, allà on realment poden tenir més capacitat de créixer. Per tant, tindrem un programa nou específic d'ajuts i de finançament per totes les empreses de l'àmbit dels videojocs i dels continguts digitals interactius. Ajudes que aniran des de l'àmbit reintegrable, que és un àmbit d'ajut que algunes empreses ja de l'àmbit digital han aprofitat i les han aprofitat amb molt d'èxit. Aquest format d'ajuda en què participem com a administració finançant el projecte prèviament a l'arrencada del projecte i quan el projecte té èxit aquests diners, diguem-ne, es retornen perquè es puguin reinvertir en d'altres projectes, participant en risc, corrent en risc conjuntament amb l'empresa. Traurem una nova modalitat en l'àmbit dels crèdits participatius per formar part d'aquesta fase de seed capital inicial en aquestes empreses que puguin invertir entre 30.000 entre 200.000 euros, una forquilla que és necessària segurament no per una gran empresa, però sí per moltes empreses que requereixen aquest punt d'inici o aquesta necessitat de circular, aquesta necessitat de líquid per poder començar a arrencar els projectes. Tindrem també una línia de préstecs més estàndard, però una línia de préstecs pensada i oberta pel sector dels videojocs, i a més hi haurà una part de l'accelerador de projectes europeus que treballarà en l'àmbit dels videojocs. Sabeu que s'acaba de presentar el programa Mèdia de la Unió Europea, el nou programa dels pròxims 7 anys, i una de les novetats del programa Mèdia dins d'Europa Creativa és que han obert la línia específica per videojocs. Aleshores, nosaltres el que hem de fer en l'accelerador és buscar de linkar com més puguem els nostres ajuts i els nostres suports amb els que puguin venir de la Unió Europea per poder doblar-los i poder fer que l'energia que hi dediquem tots plegats es pugui aprofitar d'aquest efecte multiplicador. A banda d'això, afavorir els esdeveniments que ja s'estan celebrant a Barcelona, que ja s'estan celebrant a Catalunya i que en molts casos estan aconseguint un bon espai dins del seu mercat, un bon espai dins del seu sector. Evidentment tenim el Game Lab, però hi ha molts altres esdeveniments que estan al voltant d'aquesta miríada d'esdeveniments que es lliguen a la Mobile World Capital i a la mobilitat. Avui, de fet, això s'està presentant al Mobile World Center, del qual la Generalitat de Catalunya n'és patró com a fundació de la Mobile World Capital, en la qual hi prestarem la màxima atenció. A nivell d'internacionalització també traurem aquesta línia d'ajuts perquè pugueu accedir a fires i a mercats internacionals claus específics que a vosaltres us interessi. Això s'ha estat fent tradicionalment amb els altres sectors de la cultura, per què no obrir-ho? Per tant, aquest any serà el primer any en què s'obriran aquestes línies de suport per poder accedir a aquests esdeveniments internacionals. A banda d'això, les oficines a l'estranger de la Generalitat podran servir també de punt de referència per vosaltres quan hagueu d'organitzar aquella reunió a Londres, aquella trobada a París, a Berlín o fins i tot anar a Brussel·les, haver d'anar a buscar, haver de presentar l'últim document per aplicar els fons Mèdia. Podreu també utilitzar aquests recursos que al final també són vostres. Treballar en l'àmbit de les universitats, aquest pla també ho recull, buscar aquesta transferència en què puguem ser un element neutre al mig del que seria l'àmbit de la formació i l'àmbit empresarial per poder seure al voltant d'una taula i parlar tranquil·lament de necessitats i d'eines que fan falta pel futur. Per tant, ser aquesta eina de transferència sectorial que faci també que, a banda del sector universitari, les empreses culturals tradicionals, les productores de cine, les productores de música, les discogràfiques, la gent que fa teatre fins i tot, la gent que fa arts escèniques o els artistes visuals o el món del llibre, el món de l'edició, vegi d'una forma no intrusiva, sinó d'una forma positiva l'entrada de tot el que el món dels videojocs i el desenvolupament digital li pot permetre. Nosaltres ho hem treballat de la manera més seriosa possible, tindrà, ja us dic, una presentació molt més específica i molt més detallada d'aquí a un mes. Entenem que és segurament una de les millors coses que farem al llarg d'aquest any, per tant n'estem molt contents i al final el resultat l'acabareu veient vosaltres, i sereu vosaltres qui acabareu fent possible que aquesta eina sigui, aquest pla sigui viable o no ho sigui. Ho he dit tot en català al final, Bueno, pues lo siento, se me va a veces. Nada, que he contado un plan digital que ya os contaremos, ya os explicaremos con más detalle. Y básicamente decir eso, felicitar a Pat, felicitar a los casi 40, me han dicho ya, miembros de la 40 ya miembros de la asociación. Para empezar, es una cifra que no está nada mal. Para nosotros, como decía al principio, es muy importante tener interlocutores que sean válidos, que sean representativos, que sean positivos, como decía antes, que sean interlocutores que lo que hagan sea proponer ideas e intentar trabajar mejor con los recursos que al final son de todos para que devuelvan a todos de la mejor forma posible. Por tanto, felicidades a PAC, muchas gracias.
Bueno, pues muchas gracias a todos por haber venido, gracias a Belefan por habernos colaborado en organizar este evento y haber conseguido que Cabastor y yo nos invite ahora a todos a tomar una copa de cava. Sí, ahora, tomando una copita de cava. Muchas gracias a todos. Gracias. ¿Eh?